Elias Thorne was the undisputed king of Cape Town's tech scene, but his heart was a barren wasteland. Every woman he met smelled of desperation and expensive perfume, their eyes calculating his net worth before even learning his middle name. He was tired of the artifice. He needed a soul that didn't have a price tag attached. So Elias decided on a radical social experiment. He swapped his tailored Italian suits for a tattered, grime-streaked hoodie and a pair of boots held together by duct tape. He left his penthouse in Clifton and traveled to the bustling streets of Sandton, Johannesburg. He wanted to be where the hustle was loudest and the pretension was thickest. Positioning himself outside a high-end mall, Elias slumped against a concrete pillar. He held a cardboard sign that read, "Hungry and Hopeless." For 3 days, he watched the elite of South Africa sidestep him as if he were a pile of refuse. Some tossed copper coins with looks of pure disgust. Others whispered loud enough for him to hear about how the aesthetic of the city was being ruined. He felt invisible, a ghost in a city of gold. He was almost ready to give up, convinced that genuine kindness had been bred out of the upper class. Then the scent of vanilla and sandalwood hit him. A woman stopped. She didn't look down at him, she knelt. "You look like you've had a long day," she whispered softly. The woman was Maya Makona. She wasn't dressed in labels, but she carried herself with a quiet authority that commanded attention. She handed Elias a warm parcel wrapped in brown paper, a fresh bunny chow from a nearby vendor. "It's not much, but it's the best meal in the square," she said, offering a smile that reached her eyes. Elias, playing the part, let his hands tremble as he took the food. He looked into her eyes, searching for a hint of pity, but found only empathy. "Why are you helping me?" Elias croaked, his voice raspy from disuse. Maya shrugged, adjusting her bag. "I've known what it's like to have nothing. My father lost everything when I was young. People forget that we are all just one bad day away from the sidewalk." They talked for an hour. She told him she worked as a junior designer for a struggling fashion house, trying to keep her family's legacy alive. Elias was captivated. She was brilliant, sharp-witted, and seemingly untainted by the greed that defined his world. He told her his name was Lazarus, a man who had lost his job at the docks and fell into a spiral of bad luck. Maya promised to bring him coffee the next morning. As she walked away, Elias felt a spark he hadn't felt in years. He had found her, the perfect woman, the good wife who would love the man, not the billions. He was ready to start the next phase. For 2 weeks, Lazarus and Maya met daily. Elias played his role to perfection, weaving a tragic backstory while subtly testing her. He once found a high-end watch near his spot and showed it to her. Without hesitation, Maya insisted they take it to the mall's lost and found. She was incorruptible. Elias was certain he had won the lottery of life. He decided it was time for the grand reveal, the cinematic moment where he would sweep her off her feet. He rented a discreet but luxurious villa in Houghton and arranged for a private car to pick her up under the guise of a work opportunity. When Maya arrived, she was confused, led through the marble halls by a silent butler. Elias stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, now dressed in a navy suit that cost more than Maya's annual salary. He turned around, expecting a gasp of joy, a tearful realization that her kindness had been rewarded with a prince. "Lazarus?" Maya whispered, her face pale. "It's Elias, actually," he said, stepping forward with a triumphant smile. "I had to know if you were real, Maya. I had to know if you would love a man with nothing. You passed every test. I want you to be my wife. I can save your family's business. I can give you the world." He waited for the embrace. Instead, Maya's expression shifted from shock to a cold, terrifyingly sharp smile. She didn't cry. She didn't even look surprised for long. "Tests, Elias?" Maya asked, her voice dropping an octave into a smooth, predatory purr. She walked toward the bar and poured herself a glass of his most expensive scotch. She didn't look like a struggling designer anymore. She looked like a queen surveying a conquered territory. You thought you were the one doing the observing. That's adorable. Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. The warmth he had seen in her eyes was replaced by a calculated metallic glint. Maya took a slow sip of the whiskey. I knew who you were the moment I saw you sitting on that curb. You're Elias Thorne. Your face was on the cover of Forbes Africa last month. You think a struggling designer doesn't keep track of the men who fund the industry? Elias froze. The mercy he had received, the shared meals, the stories of her father, it was all a performance. She had seen the billionaire through the rags from the very first second. I knew exactly what you were looking for, she continued, circling him like a shark. You wanted a saint. You wanted a girl from the hood with a heart of gold to validate your ego. So I gave her to you. I studied your preferences, your previous flings, your psychological profile. I played the part of the selfless savior because I knew it was the only way to get into this room. Elias felt the walls closing in. He had been the one being hunted. Elias tried to maintain his composure. So it was all a lie? The kindness, the bunny chow, the morals? Maya laughed, a dry, melodic sound. The bunny chow was real. The rest was business. But here's the juicy part, Elias. You've already committed. She pulled a legal document from her bag. It wasn't a marriage license, but something far more binding. During their dates, Elias had signed various permits for her supposed business, which were actually disguised transfer deeds for his subsidiary shares. I don't care about a wedding, Maya said, leaning in close. I want the empire. But since you're so obsessed with the idea of a good wife, I'll play the role. We will get married. We will be the golden couple of South Africa. You will have your perfect image, and I will have my seat at the board. Elias was horrified, but he was also strangely turned around. He had looked for a woman who wasn't after his money, but he found a woman who was his intellectual equal in deception. The scandal was brewing beneath the surface. If he exposed her, he would look like a fool who was outplayed by a beggar. If he married her, he was inviting a viper into his bed. But Elias Thorne didn't like losing. He looked at Maya, seeing her for the first time, not as a charity case, but as a partner in crime. You're dangerous, he whispered. And you're bored, she countered. Let's give the public the wedding of the century, Elias. Just don't expect me to cook. The wedding was held at a private estate in the Winelines. It was the social event of the year. The beggar girl who won the billionaire's heart was the headline of every tabloid. Maya was a vision in white lace, the perfect picture of grace and humility. To the world, it was a fairy tale. To Elias, it was a hostage situation. He watched her charm his investors and navigate the complex social hierarchies of Cape Town with the precision of a seasoned diplomat. However, the scandal was just beginning to leak. A former associate of Maya's appeared in the shadows, threatening to reveal that she wasn't a struggling designer at all, but a disgraced corporate spy who had been blacklisted years ago. Elias found Maya in the library, calmly shredding documents. We have a problem, he said, tossing the blackmailer's photos on the table. Maya didn't blink. I've already handled it. He's been paid off with your money, of course. Elias realized that Maya wasn't just after the money. She was after the power that came with his name. She was ruthlessly efficient. She had cleared his schedule, fired the staff she deemed leaky, and was now effectively running his daily life. The billionaire who tried to find a simple wife had instead found a CEO who was better at his job than he was. He felt a twisted sense of admiration. He had sought a wife, but he had accidentally hired a predator to protect his throne. The plot thickened when Maya's brother, Julian, arrived at the estate. He was tall, charming, and looked nothing like her. Elias noticed the way they interacted. It wasn't sibling affection, it was a partnership. Julian was a high-stakes gambler with a penchant for expensive secrets. He began borrowing Elias's cars and making appearances at exclusive clubs, whispering that the Thorn Empire was under new management. Elias realized he wasn't just dealing with Maya, he was dealing with a syndicate. Julian pulled Elias aside during a garden party. "You did a brave thing, Elias, playing beggar. It's a shame you didn't realize the beggar you picked was the most wanted woman in the underground markets of Durban." Elias felt the trap tightening. Maya had a past that was darker than he could have imagined. She hadn't just been a spy, she had been a closer, someone sent to dismantle companies from the inside. Elias began his own counter-investigation. He realized that the tests he put her through were child's play compared to the game she was playing now. She was moving his assets into offshore accounts, not for herself, but for a family he didn't know existed. The good wife was actually a professional infiltrator. But Elias had one card left to play. He knew that even the best liars have a weakness, and Maya's weakness was her desire for legitimate status in South African high society. Elias invited the most prestigious families in South Africa to a charity gala at his home. He told Maya it was her coming out party as the new head of the Thorn Foundation. She was ecstatic. This was the legitimacy she craved. She spent weeks preparing, ensuring every detail was perfect. She was so focused on the social climb that she didn't notice Elias was quietly talking to the authorities she had been running from for years. But Elias wasn't planning to arrest her. That would be too simple. He wanted to own her. During the gala, he stood on the stage, the microphone in hand. "I want to thank my wife Maya for showing me the truth," he said, his voice echoing through the ballroom. "She taught me that everyone has a disguise. Some wear rags, some wear silk, but tonight we take the masks off." Maya's smile faltered. She saw Julian being escorted out by security in the background. Elias leaned into the microphone. "I'm announcing that Maya will be the sole executor of our new transparency initiative, where every cent of our wealth will be audited by the public." The room erupted in applause. Maya looked like she wanted to scream. By making her the face of a transparency movement, Elias had effectively locked her out of her own schemes. She couldn't steal from a vault that the entire country was watching. He had trapped the predator in a cage made of her own ambition. Late that night, after the guests had departed, the masks finally shattered. Maya threw a crystal glass against the fireplace. "You think you're clever, Elias? You've ruined everything. I can't move a single rand without the press noticing now." Elias poured himself a drink, perfectly calm. "You wanted to be a billionaire's wife, Maya. This is what it looks like. You get the status, the jewelry, and the fame, but you don't get my company." They stood in the center of the room, two liars who had finally found the truth about each other. "I actually liked the bunny chow," Elias said quietly. Maya paused, her anger simmering down into a cold, hard respect. "I actually liked the way you looked in that dirty hoodie," she admitted. "You were more human then." They realized that the goals they had both set out to achieve were met, but in the most scandalous way possible. Elias had his good wife, a woman who was strong, brilliant, and capable of holding his world together. Maya had her rich husband, a man who was finally interesting enough to keep her engaged. It wasn't a marriage of love, it was a marriage of mutual destruction and absolute power. They were the most dangerous couple in South Africa, bound together by the secrets of their beginning. The billionaire and the beggar spy were now a unified front of calculated ambition. A year later, the Thorn-Makawina Union was the most influential force in the country. Elias sat in his office, looking at a photo of the day they met in Sandton. He had set out to find a wife who loved him for who he was. In a twisted way, Maya did. She loved his mind, his ruthlessness, and his ability to play the game. She didn't love a saint because she wasn't one herself. She loved the man who was smart enough to catch her. Maya walked in, tossing a folder onto his desk. The acquisition of the Durban ports is complete, and I've arranged for a donation to the shelter where we met, for the aesthetic, as you say. She leaned down and kissed his cheek, a gesture that was 50% affection and 50% victory. They had both won. Elias had the loyalty of a woman who would never leave because she was his only equal. The scandal of their origins remained a whispered legend in the streets of Johannesburg. People told the story of the billionaire who acted like a beggar to find a good wife. They just didn't realize that good didn't mean innocent. It meant capable. As they looked out over the Cape Town skyline from their balcony, Elias realized he had achieved exactly what he wanted. He wasn't alone anymore. He had found a partner who knew his darkest secrets and chose to stay, if only to make sure she got the best seat in the house.